this is one of those topics I was actually asked specifically to address, um, given where we are right now with school closures and trying to engage students remotely, and also where we are professionally as we're meeting with colleagues and other folks. At some point, it seems like we all end up on Zoom. So I was actually asked to say, well, what are some of the things that we can do to make this experience more engaging? And specifically, as we are talking about working with kids, what are some things we can do to use this particular platform to be more engaging with students? And I know one of the challenges that we have greatly is just trying to maintain that social connection with our students and with one another. I think, we talk a lot about learning loss, and we talk about the efficacy of the instructional practices, but we also need to think very carefully about what is the social interaction that students need from us. So some of the things that we're going to address today will also deal more with what are some things that we can do with this platform just so that kids know that we are connecting with them, that we're interested in them, and that we are watching out for them during this time. So we'll address those as well. Oh, there's another one coming in, but we have a pretty robust agenda, and I just for the sake of full disclosure, I have never given this particular presentation. We've got an hour and a half. I don't know if we're going to go a little short. We won't go long. I know that, but I will try to make all of it as meaningful as possible for you, just out of appreciation for you all being here and just, you know, well, one of the things I've often said about what makes a good teacher, and I've worked with literally thousands and thousands of teachers over the years. One of the things that I think characterizes a good teacher is it's a teacher who's always trying to find ways to improve. And just the fact that you're here tells me that you are interested in seeing what we can do more, or seeing what we can do better, or maybe get some ideas about how we can help our kids, not only academically, but also with their social needs. So that, I hope, gives sort of the overall framework of what this is going to be about. All right, so we are 4 minutes after. I'm going to wait until 2:35, then I'm going to shut down all my Zoom stuff and go straight into a presentation and interaction and discussion and all of that. Um, okay, close enough. All right, so let's get to it. Okay, let's get to it. Let me open some things up here, and we will get to it. All right, so Zoom, let's share the screen. I don't see anybody else sneaking in, so I think we are good to go. All right, and let me just get rid of that. All right. So the topic today, obviously, Zoom tips for engaging students, but you're going to see that a lot of what we do is not just about engaging students per se, but also about how do we manage the interaction? How do we manage the platform so that it becomes more conducive to interaction, not just with students, but with one another as well. So all of that is going to be addressed today. So let's just get it. We're going to basically start from the very beginning, from the setup and some of the tools and options available to you, all the way through some specific strategies. And I've got a neat tool that that you can use along with Zoom that I think is very powerful and very useful for interaction. All right, so with no further ado, I will say one thing just as a quick ground rule. When I set this up for folks to participate and observe, I set it up so everybody's muted upon entry, but I will ask you this. Good, we are recording. Okay. I will ask you this. If you've got a question, if you have something you feel like you want to share, please absolutely unmute yourself and ask the question. As you can see from my screen, I can't see my chat box. So if you've got something to interject, you are more than welcome to simply unmute yourself and let's hear what you have to say. All righty. So, yes.
Are you sharing this slideshow, or will you, or no?
You want a copy of it?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I would definitely be happy to do that. I'll convert the whole thing to a PDF and send it around.
I'll
Happy to
take
do
less notes and get the full thing. So.
that. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I will definitely do it. Let me make myself a little note. Sure, you got it. Okay. So the items specifically that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about setting up the platform. We're going to talk a little bit about teacher and student behavior during Zoom meetings, and I'm going to ask for some input on that. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the features on Whiteboard that many people that I've encountered don't seem to be aware of, but I've also got a different type of interaction tool that I'm going to share with you, which I'm calling something neat here. We're going to talk about taking breaks. We're going to talk about some games. We're going to talk about some specific strategies. And to some degree, we're going to talk about breakout rooms, more about the structure of the rooms than how to get students in and out of the rooms. And honestly, I think that's getting kids in and out of rooms is pretty simple, but there are some things I think can help to facilitate that. So that is what we've got. So you probably noticed this when you logged in. One of the things that I would strongly recommend is that when we're setting up the meeting, and this is under the topic of meeting setup, we do want to mute participants upon entry. And it seems like kind of an odd thing to say because we're talking about how to increase interaction. But what often happens is people are getting in and several people start talking at once and then nobody knows what's going on. So I think when we start by even muting our students when they first enter, then we have some more control over managing that. So part of the setup when I'm actually designing, I'm doing the scheduling, is always to mute the participants upon entry. And then we can either ask people specifically to unmute or they can do it on their own like we're doing here. Okay, so this is part of just some ways we're setting up the platform. The other thing that I think is a best practice is to go ahead and just set it up so that everybody is video enabled. Now, we do see from our participant list today that a lot of folks are not enabling their video. But when I set it up so that the default is to see people's faces. Now with kids, what I've noticed is that generally every kid's going to be on video. The interesting thing is with the adults, it's about half and half typically. For some reason, adults seem to be a lot more shy about being on video, or maybe it's a technological capability as well, I suppose. But we want to establish what is the default nature, and part of that is make sure that everybody can turn on their video. So, but one thing that I think is very useful for managing the platform, managing the Zoom platform, that makes it easier to do is to do something called save as a meeting template. Has anybody ever used that besides me, frankly? If you used it, let's please say so. Unmute yourself and please say so.
No, we have not used it.
I haven't.
I don't know what that is.
There's a lot I don't know how to use. All of that, enable, join before host, and all of that, I don't know.
Okay.
I had never used it, but that was probably going to be my next question. Will it save what your preferred settings? Boom, there it is.
There it is. Yeah, and I can actually just show you. I'll share it. If you've never set up a meeting, home, and now I'm doing this through the desktop app. I find it's much easier to do the initial setup if you actually download the desktop app, but you can also just simply log into your account online and do it from there as well. And the commands are going to be much the same. So when I'm scheduling, and I've got advanced options down here, we have a variety of things here. But as soon as I hit that save button, it's going to bump me over to the website anyway. So if you're using the online scheduling, you're going to end up at the same place as if you do it this way. But when you get to the online, there's a lot of controls that are available to you. And if you go to your account setting, there's something in there called meeting controls. And let me just see if I can pop over there for folks, just to show you. If you've never done it at all, let's actually go there. In which case, I'm going to have to track down my password, because what you're going to want to take a look at is something called user settings or meeting settings. And just give me a sec. I better stop share for just a moment. I'm going to pull up a list of passwords, so I probably shouldn't share it. There's bank accounts and things. All right. All right, I've got my password. Let's go back to share. Share. Okay. So when I go to, am I already logged in? I am not. Sign in. So now, if you can't see this, I'm showing my Zoom account. So if you can't see it, let me know. But over here, let's see, schedule a meeting, profile, previous, all of my information, meetings, webinar, user management. You can go to the scheduling here, right at the top, and you're going to see you get a lot of the exact same controls, but you have a few additional options available to you. And let me blow this up to make it a little easier for you to see it. Maybe that's too much. Okay. So we're putting in the topic, the date, and all that kind of stuff. But take a look down below. Right here is the section for video, on or off. What's the default? And generally we do telephone by computer audio. And if we go a little bit down, you see allow participants to join or not. We've got this one right here, mute participants on entry, which I do think is a best practice, and automatically record and so forth. So you see those controls are there. And now to see, did I address this mute on entry, enable all videos? Good, good, good. All right. So once you have gone through this and you hit save at the bottom, and I think I'll just go ahead and do that. It's going to take us to a page where it shows an overview of the settings. And at the bottom of this overview, here's the meeting you just created. At the bottom of this overview is a link that says save meeting template. That way you don't have to go through it every single time and say, I want this, I don't want that, I want this, I don't want that. What you can do instead, if you click on that, when you next go to schedule a meeting, you can simply say, use a template, and bring up your template with all of the settings already in place. So if the question is, how do you save all your settings once you've gone through and kind of done it the way you want to do it? All you have to do is click the box that says, use a template, and then choose the template that you have named. So on the website, so let's go up to meeting, start this meeting, schedule a meeting up at the top, and you'll see right there, use a template. So that's how you save all your settings, and it makes it easier because then you don't have to go through it all again. I mean, I'm a big fan of doing things once and then just replicating. So this is how you do that. Did anybody not see how I got there? Did anybody not see? As soon as you hit save, you've got a button that says save as a meeting template. You give it a name. The next time you go to schedule a meeting, you are able to select that template. Okay, not hearing any questions. I'm going to make the risky assumption that people got it. All right. Just why go through it again and again every time if it's going to be the same each time? All right. So that's part of setting up the meeting, just to make it easier to have control over the platform. Now, here is one thing I do strongly recommend, and the funny thing is, I'm always a bit amused when somebody is doing screen sharing and they have to hide something or tuck something away, and all of a sudden you get a quick shot of their desktop. And sometimes it's a little bit messy. Let me put this in animation mode. Oftentimes I see something that looks like this, which is craziness. It needs cleanup, because if you had ever at any point are showing what's on your screen, this is kind of a part of your nonverbal behavior. It's a part of your appearance, the way you dress, the way you have your classroom, the cleanliness and the orderliness of your environment, and then you've got this in the background. So here's one that's even a little bit better, believe it or not. But what we're really trying to do is get to this point here, so that if any time you have to show what your desktop looks like, it looks like a clean, orderly environment. And at great risk to myself, there's mine, by the way, just in case you're curious what mine looks like, since I'm talking about other people's desktops. Okay. So we want a nice environment. And it says something about I think it says something about the seriousness with which we are presenting ourselves to our students, and our ability to focus on them and their needs. Because a part of what we're trying to do is we're trying to demonstrate the importance of the social connection and the importance of our relationship with a student. And subtle as it might be, this is a part of that process. All right, so that's all the setup. That's all the stuff you do before you launch your Zoom meeting. Now, there's a couple of things that I think are best practices once you actually start the meeting. And one of them is check everything. Can you be heard? There is a function on Zoom that allows you to do a feedback loop where you can actually speak and it will repeat back to you. So you can see whether or not you are being heard through your microphone and whether or not you can hear through your speakers. A lot of folks, they just don't know, and they just end up shouting at their shouting at their screens. There's a tendency when people use any kind of a microphone or a headset or a computer something on their computer, to just speak way too loudly. And I wonder if a part of it is because when we're in a classroom, we tend to increase the volume of our speech because we've got, kids that are 20, 30 feet away or wherever they are. So we tend to talk a little bit louder. But here we only have to project as far as our mouth to our microphone, whether it's on a computer or a headset or on your webcam or something like that. So I do recommend checking that. What is your volume level? And if it comes back really loud, then you can say, well, maybe I need to turn something down, or I can talk more normally. So that's one thing we want to do when we first launch the meeting. But the other one has to do with the chat functions. There is the ability to control to whom folks can chat. And you have some options available to you. I think in a class setting, we want to make sure that anything that goes into the chat box, we are able to see. Now, especially if we're doing like a quiz or something like that, or some kind of a proctored environment where we have to control the communication, we definitely want to do that. But at the same time, if we're talking about class and class discussion, we ask students to put things into chat. it's a best practice that we restrict their ability to chatting with everyone. Or you can do host only. Now, if you're not sure where to get there, let me show you where that is. Chat. Let me pull up a chat box. I kind of hate doing this. All right, Perfilia, thank you. So I don't know if you're able to see the chat controls, but right here, there is something called options, and it's the three little dots on the right-hand side. That's your menu. And when you click it, that's where you find your options for the chat. No one, host, everyone, and so forth. And you see I've got it marked as everyone publicly at this time. So anything that goes in there, we all get to see it. All right, that's what that is, right there. Now, as the host of the session, as a scheduler, you still can choose individual people. If you need to say something to a specific student, you can still have a private message to somebody else and they can private message you back. But if it's not a response, then students are limited to what you put over here, what you choose over here. Okay. Let me go ahead and close that. Now, who would you rather listen to? If you would rather listen to the guy on the left, please say so. If you'd rather listen to the guy on the right, please say so. And this is actually what it looks like. So there's the two. So go ahead and unmute yourself. Tell me which one you would rather listen to. And also, have you ever been in a meeting or in a class session where you're looking at that right there? What has your experience been?
Yeah, I get a lot of my kids' foreheads when they're talking to me. So I definitely want to see the person on the right.
Sure.
And for myself, I would like to see the person on the right.
I always tell my students that I need to see that they have underarm pits because they want to be the person on the left. And, if I say, let me see your whole face, then I get, just a little bit more. But if I say underarm pits, then I hopefully get a full person.
That sounds like a very risky thing to ask people. You might get some surprising responses. But think about yourself. I mean, so I'm on a lot of Zoom meetings, and sometimes with teachers, sometimes with administrators and other folks like that. I see a lot of the adults doing what's on the left also, where it's this. I do wonder though, people are on their laptops, it's tend to be, the camera's lower anyway, but then they're tilting their screen so they can see it better, and as a result, they get that part right there. Well, the funny thing is, this is actually an old broadcast trick, from the invention of television. That if we're going to be on screen, or if we're going to be in a photograph, there's actually a mathematical formula for having the most engaging presence. Now, if we ourselves are the guy on the left, the forehead, it becomes very difficult to interact effectively with other folks, because we're not giving them the types of clues, the types of nonverbal clues that they need in order to enhance the communication. So can somebody tell me, does anybody know what the formula is for the picture on the right?
Rule of thirds.
The rule of thirds. And what is that?
I don't know. I'll let somebody else extrapolate on that.
You're on the right track.
His eyes should be a third of the way down from the top.
That's it right there. And it's the same thing with portrait photography, for example. But this actually comes out of my understanding is it actually comes out of broadcast television. Where should the camera be pointing? Now, the other thing that I see a lot is people tend to put their eyes right in the middle, so that if they're looking at themselves, they're looking at their video, they're like, oh, eyes, put it right in the middle, or face, put it right in the middle, right? And you end up with a lot of airspace above them, which doesn't really have any value. There's no content back there. So if we're talking about how do we engage students, if we're talking about how do we present ourselves in a manner that best increases that personal connection, this is actually the rule right here. Eyes are at 1/3. Is that new information to folks? Anybody?
That's new to me.
Yes, that's new to me.
Well, good. I'm glad something new. But we see that a lot. I mean, just all the time. Either we're right in the middle of the screen or we're at the bottom of the screen. But if we're talking about enhancing the interaction, then we want to present ourselves in the most engaging manner possible. And that means let's get our eyes at about, more or less at the 3rd level, at the 1/3 mark. And of course, smile, right? We don't want to look worried like the guy over there. So the other thing that we want to do is we need to talk about the 4 senses and the heart. So this is all, remember, this is all the stuff we do when we first launch the meeting. We're not even talking about the instruction yet, but just how do we increase interaction with students right from the very beginning. And so one of the things that we want to do is we want to deal with 4 of our senses. And of course, we want to deal with the emotional aspect also. So we're going to ask our kids every single time, how are you? And we want to make sure that we get a response from every single kid. Now, in a regular classroom environment, kids are walking in the door. We are likely standing at the doorway or somewhere close to it to greet them as they come in. And that carries over to what we're doing here, so that we are recognizing the participation and the presence of every student, because what that ultimately says is you are important to me. And this is an environment in which we are going to learn together, to share together, and we're going to have some, we're going to interact basically. But we also need to deal with the 4 senses. Now, I put an X over smell because frankly, if you can smell somebody through Zoom, then you've got a better nose than I do. But the other 4 senses are still true. We have feeling, which in this case is giving students the ability to share their screens. We've got listening, can you see me? We've got speaking, you will have the chance to speak. And we've got hearing, can you hear me? So 4 out of the 5 senses we still can address through the Zoom environment. Now, before we begin the instruction, I think the last thing is let's let kids know where we're going. And as you saw at the beginning of this presentation, we posted our agenda. Even if it's, your lesson plan, students are always going to have the same question. I think the adults do too, frankly, which is, what are we going to do? What are we going to do today? Now, in a regular classroom, we can look around and we can look at stuff on the walls. We can see things that are on the board. We can look at, maybe you put up some posters or something that kind of gives an idea of our learning goals. And it gives the student a chance to kind of know what their experience is going to be during the day. It has value. So I think we need to replicate that also in the Zoom environment. What's going to happen to you today? What are we going to try to accomplish? So even though it's kind of an extra step, kind of a chore for interacting with students or having a class by Zoom, I still think it provides students with a sense of stability and understanding that's going to help them to participate more fully in the classroom. What are we going to do? So we do that. Now, the next thing is, let's talk about etiquette. We have our classroom behavior expectations, and we probably have some expectations for students in Zoom, but we also have some for ourselves as well. I'm going to drop, if you've got a smartphone or a tablet or something, you can take a picture of, capture that QR code. Let me also put it into the chat box. And I would like to hear what your rules are for your students, and what rules do you impose upon yourself as well. So let me pull up chat, and let me drop that link in there. So if you could take a moment, either use the link or use your smart device to access that QR code. And what that's going to take you to, oh, I did close it, silly me. What that's going to take you to is, wrong one. I apologize for that. Let me back up and grab the correct one. Here we go. It's the one called Jamboard. Okay, folks should be coming in. And what I would like for you to do is grab a sticky note. Now, on the left-hand side, there's a menu. There's a pen tool, an eraser, a pointer, and then a sticky note tab. So if you could, click on the sticky note and add your etiquette for teachers and students. And then put it onto the appropriate side, right or left. Let me move that. There.
I'm kind of lost here. Are we supposed to go to that Jamboard?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yep. And then you can, once you get there, on the left-hand side, there will be a place you can click for sticky notes. And then go ahead and create a sticky note for what is a etiquette rule that you have for yourself, and what is a rule that you have for your students. And then you can just simply drag it into the appropriate place. And this should be set up so everybody can get there.
I have somehow lost like seeing everyone. I can hear you, but I can't see you. And I can't like get to the chat or anything. I don't know what to do.
Are you able to see my screen?
No, I don't see anything. I can just hear you guys.
Oh.
I clicked on the link and then it took me like to like another Google slide, and then I was in the wrong one, and when I clicked off of it, it just has me in Google and I can hear you guys, but I can't see you.
Well, you might not, with my screen share, you might not be able to see the other folks' videos, but
I found you. I don't know what happened, but I found you.
You're there now. You can see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Whew.
And I don't see the Jamboard one. I clicked on the one that's in there and it took me to that other one.
Yeah, I posted and I apologize for that. I posted the Google form first by accident. It's the one that's the Jamboard is the one you want.
I'm currently where we're supposed to be.
Hurrah.
Sorry about that. Okay.
No problem. I'm glad you got to the right place. Has anybody not been able to get to the Jamboard? All right, so I'm gonna close the chat window then. So put one in each side.
But how do I get the sticky note?
Okay, you see the menu on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
The fourth item down is sticky note. You just click on it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. We'll talk more about Jamboard and forms and whiteboard a little bit later, but at least right now we can just use it and see how it works in general. You can do a lot with Jamboard. Now, if you have a Google account, then you have Jamboard. It's one of the apps that's available with your Google account. So anybody with a Google account can use this tool. Yes, this works.
Oh, that
Now,
yeah.
I'm going to move that one down a little bit. What other ideas do you have for yourself? What behaviors do you think are appropriate for the teachers to remember as they're in class? Okay, no distractions. So for teachers, no distractions outside, be present, yes. Prepared, prepare, yes. Respect others' opinions. Let me just scoot this up a little bit. Modeling appropriate behavior, good. You know, the preparation thing is, in some ways, I think more complicated in the online environment. When we're in class, we can always just say, hang on, let me just grab that off of my desk, or it's right there, let me go get it. It can be more complicated online because, okay, you have to think, which documents must I have up now? Because we don't want to end up spending a lot of time just hunting around for things on our computers. It gets very distracting for students. And sometimes it shows them things they really don't have any business seeing as well. But at any point where we are basically pulling away from the students gives them the chance to disengage from the class. So preparation and kind of having to think ahead of time of all the stuff we might need can be more complicated. Politeness. So for students, ready for school, no eating, no Zoom, in bed. Yes. Present. Cameras on, full face, no multitasking. Good. Politeness, presentable, fantastic. Respecting others, good. All good ideas. Anybody still need to drop one on there, or are we good to go?
This is Deborah. I have a question.
Sure.
To get this Jam board, like you said, it's on our Google account.
Yes.
Can we pin it to? Do we have to load it as a extension, a Chrome extension?
I do not believe so. I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, if you have your Google Drive, your Google account, I'll show you how to get to it.
Okay.
We're going to talk more about Jamboard and forms and whiteboard kind of more at depth a little bit later on. So you're kind of getting ahead of me, which is fine. But so hang on to that question and make sure that I show you how to get to it. I've got on my list of things to do, but just to make sure. Okay. Politeness, respecting, pausing and asking questions, greeting students. Moderate. Okay. Lots and lots of good ideas. You know, it's interesting. I've sat in or kind of observed over the shoulder of a lot of different Zoom classes. Well, some. And I see teachers saying, here are things that I expect of you as a student. You know, do this, this, and this, video on, be presentable, etc. Those kinds of things. But I also think it's a good exercise just for ourselves to think, well, what should I expect of myself, right? And what should students expect of my behavior in this environment as well? So that's why I put that side on there also, because you know, communication is something which is always going to go both directions. So we want to make sure that we are also modeling what we want for the students. And I really like that comment, modeling appropriate behavior. So that's great. All right, so I think we're good here. I'm going to tuck this away for now and come back to this. All right. So good comments. Thank you all. One thing that I strongly recommend that we do is we keep a log of students' names, and we keep track in each session of whether or not they are interacting. You know, one of the things that we do in a classroom is we see this person has talked and that person, I need to call on that student over there, because we can see all of the kids at once and we're like, oh, I need to ask some questions of this side of the classroom. Or, you know, the kids are sitting at the back. Let's make sure that we pull them in. Well, we don't have those kind of spatial relationships with students. So some of the clues that we normally depend upon to make sure students are interacting are not available to us. So we have to find a way to replicate that. And the way that I recommend for teachers is just to make a little log. You've got somewhere a list of the kids. If they are answering a question, if they are asking a question, if they're responding when called upon, we give them a check mark. Because think about it, so it's not just because we're helping them learn and making sure that they're present in the classroom, that they're interacting and so forth, but we're also trying to address their social emotional needs. And it is very, very easy for students to disengage intellectually and emotionally when in a Zoom environment. So we want to make sure that we prevent that. We don't want them to be able to disengage, which means we have to make, have as every kid had a chance to interact. We do a lot of things, we'll talk about them, like, hey, if you have done this, or if you have the answer, let me raise your thumbs. And the kid is totally disengaged. He's looking around over here. He's just, yeah, whatever. Okay, there's, thumbs up. I got you, right? So we have to make sure we don't lose any kids, because it is simply too easy to do. So strongly recommended, keep a log. Have they interacted or not? Now, along with that, what are some of the typical strategies for getting students to respond? Well, one thing that's available in a Zoom meeting is we have those we have the Zoom responses available to us, with the thumbs up and the smiley faces and all that. And that can be pretty good for a quick spot check. When you're sharing a screen like I'm doing here, it's almost worthless, frankly. If we are instead looking at all of the cameras, like I've just pulled up all the cameras here, it becomes slightly more effective, but then we've cluttered up our screens and we've lost a lot of our space. So the Google reactions, maybe not the best way to do it. And let me go ahead and just close that again. All right. So we could instead do the thumbs, but I think one thing that we often forget about, we do this in our classrooms in many cases, draw something and then show me what you've drawn. What is the answer to this mathematical problem? And the student can write the answer and show it to us, right? And that gives us a chance, when we're looking at videos, to do a very quick scan across the students and see who has gotten the content. Now, obviously, we're not going to do this for any kind of extended responses, probably not for discussion responses, certainly anything that's a little bit higher up on Bloom's taxonomy, it wouldn't work there. But if we're simply looking for students to share information, one thing, then the slate approach or the whiteboard approach, or just write it on a piece of paper, or just hold it up in the air and show me when we're looking at video, is a very quick way to do that. And of course, there's also chat and there's also discussion. We are going to talk very briefly about using Google Forms for discussion. Now, I know that some folks have a chance to attend my session on using Google Forms to increase interaction. But if you weren't in that one, I would recommend that you spend some time poking around in Google Forms, because it does offer a lot of really good ways to get information from students and have them to share with us. And the Jamboard is another one. So with that in mind, here's the next one. And let me go ahead and put it in the link in the chat. It's the first link that I posted previously by accident, but let me go ahead and just drop it in there again. And let's see one easy way that we can use Google Forms for discussion. Private chat you the answer. Absolutely. That's a good one. So if you could take a moment and either click on the link or use your smart device camera to access that URL. And I'm going to pull up the form on my end, but instead of the form, it's only got 2 questions. I'm instead going to pull up the responses. So take a moment, go to the form. It only has 2 questions, and please complete them.
Oh,
So, Mr. David, are you able to see who's submitting, or is it anonymous? Depends how you set it up.
I can. What I'm looking at here is anonymous because I didn't have a question for names. If I had a question for names in there, then obviously I would see who it is. Yeah, then I could always create this. I can look at the spreadsheet where all the responses go, and I can see specifically how each person responded. And there's some other tools for that too. I didn't feel like that was necessary in this case. For students, you probably want to do that. Who responded and how did they respond? On the other hand, if we are simply using this to generate discussion, maybe it's not as important here unless we're keeping a log of who's actually interacting. So it sounds like, it looks like for the second question, will you use technology tools more or less? It seems like folks are, for the most part, answering how I thought they would. I think a lot of teachers will be using the technology more now that we've all been kind of forced to do it. We're seeing some advantages to it, perhaps. So yeah, I think we're going to see it incorporated more. And of course, there's the issue when kids are all back in school finally, eventually. We've engaged them in these kinds of tools. We've engaged them with the technology, and hopefully we've all learned some things about how to do that. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to just stop doing it completely. I think we're going to find that it has some good options for us. But I'll tell you what, as I discuss with other education leaders around the state, and we talk about how is all this affecting our students, it really has forced the entire education field to look more closely at technology and what it can do. There's a lot of teachers who, for whatever reason, have never really embraced some of the technological options available to them, but now they have to. So it's really pushed, screaming forward. It's pushed the entire field forward. So why did we do this? Why did we do this quick little quiz here? One is because we can use the information for discussion, but it's also an example. If we're looking for feedback and information from students, which we then use as a part of a class discussion, this is a very quick and dirty way, quick and dirty. It's a very quick way to get some information straight back from the students without everybody talking at once or having to have one person talking or another person talking. But let me ask you this in regard to the responses on this. I'll blow them up. Do you think so? Teachers will use technology more than before COVID. Do you personally think that you are going to use technology more as a result in your classroom? And feel free to unmute yourself and respond. Will you, how has this specifically changed how you think you will teach?
This is Deborah. I think I probably use more technology because doing this remote learning, I've come across a lot of really great resources that would be, once we're in the classroom, you can still benefit, the students would benefit from that.
So, Deborah, follow-up question then. Do you think you would have found those resources if everything had continued as it was before?
No, I would not have.
Okay.
But I've been with this remote learning, I've been on, I've had the opportunity of searching and finding out, trying to find resources that will help me. And so that's the way I've kind of stumbled upon them, and also taking the trainings that, you've offered and other people have offered. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here doing all of this technology.
How about other folks? Do you do you find that do you think you will be using technology more when we return to a more normal teaching environment? And do you think that you have found new resources or some new strategies as a result of this whole COVID issue?
I think I will. My problem is learning all the nuances of Google Meet and Zoom. I don't know enough.
I think I will as well. I think it's been nice that there have been a lot of like professional developments for the technology, because I think that in the past, like they would say, well, this is available to you, but there was never any training on how to use it. And so just having to do everything that we have to do in a classroom, it's hard to find time to learn that new stuff. Now it's being offered. So I definitely want to make sure I use what I've learned, during this time.
Great. Anybody else?
I think it would impact our students as well. We keep hoping we haven't lost them, and that if we actually go back to school, that they'll be here, and they're used to using technology now.
Absolutely.
Well, and I did go to the Google Forms training that you had, and there was like so much stuff you could do with the Google Forms. And I think that, even when we go back to the classroom, those kind of things could be projected up on a screen or something like that. So there is like it can be utilized when we're all together too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking last night, yesterday afternoon, to one of the superintendents, not up in the Four Corners region, but a different one, and we were talking about some of the hardships that he was going through as the education leader in his region. But one thing that he pointed out to me I thought was really interesting is they have just flat out lost some of their kids, and I don't mean like kids have checked out, like they're just become disengaged and disinterested. They've lost them. They've got a pretty good percentage of kids they've had no contact with at all. I mean, they just don't know where those kids are. I think we're flat out just losing kids altogether, not just losing, the efficacy of the regular instructional environment, but just where are they? Right? They're just lost. Very strange. All right, so yes, ma'am, please.
Here, I'm a little worried about, the literal losing of them. Are they more at risk? Anyway, that's all.
Yeah, it's a challenge for sure. Okay, so what we've done. So I think it spurred a pretty interesting discussion, but that's one of the things that we can do to engage students. Let's use a Google form to generate some information that we can then draw upon to facilitate discussion with our students. So a nice little example there. All right. And really good comments. So thank you all for that. It did occur to me when I was reflecting on what we said about the etiquette piece. our tendency is to look at our screens and not look at our cameras, because all of the interesting stuff is over there on our screens, right? Um, or if we have, say, a camera that's embedded on the top of our laptop, which is, if we're using a laptop, that's pretty common. We still tend to look at the screen, so we're always looking below the camera. I don't have it now, but I used to have a little sticky note right there on the edge of my screen that says, look at camera, because I had to retrain myself to make sure that even though all of my content is over here or someplace else, if I'm interacting with folks and I'm being present, a part of that, I think, is I have to look at the camera, which frankly is not as interesting as all this stuff that's on my screen over here. But that connection is essential. And one of the ways that we connect with people is we engage in eye contact with them. Well, there's no eyes here, but we do have the camera. So, like I said, I used to have a little sticky note just to remind myself, look at the camera.
I have a question for you. I noticed you're wearing a headset.
Yes.
And when I'm doing a Google class with my students, if I hold up something in front, then they can't really hear me. They're always like, we can't hear you, we can't hear you. So the headset and then the mic, does that amplify or help hear, or for the students to hear?
Well, let me say first, I can hear you very, very clearly.
Okay. What if I put this?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you really well. Kit, if I do this, can you hear me? I'm holding
I
up
can
a
hear you. I can
Yeah.
hear you.
Yep. We hear you.
okay, because my students are always like, we can't hear you.
Uh-oh.
So
Mine do the same thing.
And sometimes they're telling the truth, right?
yeah.
Sometimes they're making
Yeah.
excuses. I have used a headset for years. It's a little nerdy. Interesting. I was in a conference this weekend, having to do with computer science education, and there were maybe 30 people in the meeting. There were three guys and 27 women. The guys all had headsets on. The women looked beautiful, but the guys were all like, I don't care how nerdy I look, I'm going to wear my headset. Um, I just think it's really, really useful. I've done it for such a long time. It's kind of second nature. It does look a little dorky at first, but I can speak at a normal tone of voice. I don't have to shout at my computer. I can hear very well, and there's no feedback. Sometimes we get that when, the sound is coming out of the speakers, then it's feeding back into the microphone of our devices. This eliminates that. Now, there's lots of different kinds of headsets. This one is a bit kind of over the top, perhaps. I think this one was close to $90. It's actually a gamer's headset, because the earpieces are really, really comfortable, and I spend a lot of time wearing it. But there's some very good ones out there for only a fraction of that cost. I think it's good. I think you can hear me better, and I can hear you better. So I would recommend it, but it is kind of nerdy.
Is it likely the kids are off task when they're saying we can't hear you? Like suddenly really attuned to you more, and they're I don't know.
Well, on my experience, I think sometimes they don't hear, because sometimes even the parents will say,
Yeah.
we can't hear you. And I know my principal was in on one of our Zoom meetings, and she said, I could hear you fine, but there was sometimes your voice was that she couldn't really hear. As she suggested, maybe a headset with a microphone.
A lot of that is going to depend on what microphone you're using. So, for example, with a lot of laptops, they have a little camera eyeball at the top, and there'll be somewhere around there, there'll be an integrated microphone. Those tend to pick up sounds in kind of a narrow cone. So if you turn away from it, it might not pick you up, or not very clearly.
Yeah, I think that's probably what was happening. I wasn't talking directly towards the computer.
if kids, since we're talking about kids, if kids can't hear you, then your ability to interact with them is diminished by that much, right? So I like headsets personally, and I always have. Matter of fact, I used to have a headset specifically for my phone, so I could put my phone down because I'm at my desk, I'm at my computer, and I'm banging away on my keys over here. So I put the phone on speaker, and I'll try to talk to it, but then they hear my keys banging away and all that kind of stuff. Or if I want to wander around, so I used to have a headset just for the phone as well. This one, I like it. Like I said, it's actually a PlayStation gamers headset, but it's wireless, which I really like about it because then I don't have to worry about getting tangled up in the cords and how many USB ports I have and that kind of stuff. Okay, so that being done, everyone shares to everyone. We kind of addressed that with the chat. So brain, back, and eye breaks. I have long been a proponent of something called active learning or physical learning, where we're actually engaging students in activities, because one of the things we know that is when students are moving around, their brains are functioning at a higher level. I mean, just the fact of moving around helps keep more of our brain engaged. So I think it's worth doing in this environment. Also, it's hard on kids, especially younger ones, to just sit and stare at a screen. And we've got to give them the chance to stand up, stretch, wiggle their arms around. You're not going to get to see me dancing. I apologize for that. And you don't want to. But with the little ones, I know a lot of teachers that say, okay, we're all going to take a little dance break, and they'll pop on a YouTube video of kids dancing, and all the kids get up and wiggle around. And I think it is absolutely worth doing that. So we're not going to take a break though. All right. A little bit different when you're adults, but for kids, absolutely. All right, but let's talk about some games, right? Does anybody know the game Never Have I Ever?
No.
Yes.
All right. Can you explain to us how it goes?
Let's see if I can explain it. So you pick like a topic like like never have I ever during COVID done this. So it would be something like because I used this early when COVID started, but because I was laughing with my husband, but like never have I ever voluntarily gone outside to pull weeds so I could get out of my house.
Yeah. Nice.
Like that. So you pick like a topic and then it's something that you really have done, but I don't know. I'm not explaining it very well, but yeah.
Here, I'll tell you how I've played it, how I've seen it played. For folks on camera, we have to be on camera to do this. It doesn't work any other way unless we're on camera. Hold up 5 fingers. And let me move my cameras over so it's closer to where my let me move your cameras over closer to my camera. So we hold up 5 fingers. All right. I'm gonna start a topic, and if it's something that you have done, you just put down a finger. Now, you have to make sure you put down the fingers in the correct order so we don't end up with a surprising result, right? All right. So never have I ever ridden in a hot air balloon. If it's something you've done, put down one of your fingers. Never have I ever owned a dog. If you've owned a dog, put down a finger. Never have I ever had a gin martini. Never have I ever had a beer before 6 o'clock at night. All right. Let's see. Gloria, give us our next topic.
What?
Your choice.
Never have I ever seen a rabbit after 2 days. Oh, that's extra.
Fine. All right, Gloria, call on somebody to give us our next one.
Deborah.
Oh, and Deborah, you're muted. Can't hear you.
Never have I ever ridden on a horse. So
All right, call on somebody for the next one.
let me go with
Somebody with a camera.
Catherine.
Okay. Never have I ever ate lobster ice cream.
Okay, that really sounds disgusting.
It was really good.
I didn't try
just telling you, it just sounds really bad to me.
It was really good.
Okay, call the next person, please.
Okay, let me see. Karen Small.
Never have I ever eaten chicken's feet at dim sum restaurant.
Okay, has anybody run out of fingers yet?
I did.
Oh, Karen, you won, but go ahead and go ahead and call on somebody else anyway, just for fun.
How
Somebody
about my friend? How about my friend Kate Malone?
Kate, and then Kate, I'm going to ask you to call on Amy.
Never have I ever been to Mancos, Colorado.
Okay.
And Amy, you're next.
Hey, Amy, surprise.
I was gonna do a travel one as well. Never have I ever traveled to Alaska.
Okay, that is how we play Never Have I Ever. Now you can do the opposite where you put fingers up, but we're more likely to get an unwelcome response when we do it that way. So it's just a very quick way. You know, we talk about making sure kids get their little brain breaks and so forth like that. Sometimes you just have to have a little bit of fun with the kids too, right? Or one of the things that I'm sure all of us do is we've got a whole toolkit of like, here are a bunch of 5-minute things that I can do with my kids. You know, we're getting close to the end of a class session and we're pretty much done. What am I going to do for 5 minutes to make it meaningful, as opposed to, you know, okay, kids, just hang out for 5 minutes. So this is one of those little 5-minute things that we can just toss into the mix that just, you know, we know we're all at home. We're, you know, kids are wherever the kids are, and maybe they're not getting as much attention. Can we at least have a little bit of fun and engage everybody? So this is just one of those very, very quick ways to do that. Okay. Never have I ever. So let me just run through a few more. I'm looking at the time. It's 3:39 right now. So other games we can play, Pictionary, right? Where somebody's gets a topic and they have to draw and they have to show it. Now, if you're very clever and you're using Jamboard or the whiteboard, you can actually draw on that as well. And it's kind of fun to try to do it on the whiteboard, because when people draw on their computer screens, it's usually awful, just flat out horrendous and impossible to understand. So it kind of makes for good Pictionary work. And then we try to guess what it is. Okay.
Is the Jamboard and whiteboard the same thing?
Two different things, and I will show you the differences in just a moment.
Okay.
Name, place, animal. I give a letter. Everybody's got to come up with, I say B. Everybody has to come up with a name, place, animal, and thing with that letter. So Bob, Bahrain, Bunny, and okay, the word I just almost came up with is not appropriate for this. Baseball, for example. So we can do that little game. Also, scavenger hunt is kind of fun. We do want to see if we can get kids out of their chairs a little bit. So we can do scavenger hunts. Say, for example, for our very little kids, go find me something smaller than your hand. and show it to me. Or go find me something that starts with the letter G, or go find something that has the F sound in it, or whatever, whatever the case may be. So we can actually use a scavenger hunt for some of our early literacy skills, or go find me 3 items that are the same color, or whatever it may be, just to find ways to get kids out of their chairs, but still be involved in the content of the class. This is one, I'm trying to find a little piece of paper here, but this is one that we do a lot with when I do trainings on reading. We use this as a vocabulary exercise where everybody's got their vocabulary words, and I hold it up and you try to define the word for me until I'm able to guess it. I don't know if you can see it there because I've got my camera minimized here, but that's heads up. I put it on top of my head. You try to explain it to me. If I can guess it within 15 seconds, I get a point, something like that. Skip. All right, because we are getting a little short. So Zoom whiteboard and also the Jamboard. I'm a big fan of Jamboard ever since I started using it. So let me get a new share up here, and let me bring up the whiteboard instead. All right. So can you all see can anybody not see my whiteboard? Can anybody not see my writing on the whiteboard? Okay. I will tell you I am cheating a little bit. I've got a drawing tablet, but if you've got an iPad or something with a touch screen, it's actually pretty simple to do, or using the mouse is also. But a couple things that are sort of nice about this, you've got your different drawing tools up here, obviously. You can change the format of your drawing tools like that by choosing the format. You can erase things like this, spotlight. I never found any real use for it, to be honest. But a nice thing about a whiteboard is you can set it up so that multiple participants or all your participants can share the whiteboard. Now, so if you've never used it before, it's under your sharing commands. Let me just go to new share, and I've got my full screen share. I've got a particular window I can share, but one of the options is whiteboard, and this is built right into the Zoom platform. So you go to share and you select whiteboard and say share. That's how you get there. One of the features that I think a lot of people overlook, which is pretty useful, you can actually have multiple whiteboards at the same time. So let me hit the clear button up here, and I will say clear all drawings. If you're on a device where you can do it, feel free to just scribble on my whiteboard here. It is set so that anybody can contribute to it. And then I can either clear my drawings, clear all the drawings, or clear everybody else's drawings as some available. So if you really want to put something on there.
I don't think it's actually set to where we can, oh, no, Amy's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can see the toolbar.
You gotta go to view options at the top and then go down to annotate. And then you can choose, draw, stamp.
View options, and then what?
Annotate.
Annotate.
And that's not showing up on mine as an option.
Oh, okay. So the students would also have to go to view options, right?
Yes. Potentially,
okay.
Yeah.
And annotate.
I'm really glad you're showing this because I teach art, and I've been teaching art on the computer when it's really a hands-on sort of class.
Right.
So drawing has been a challenge, and I've been using this program called AutoDraw.
Mhm.
And I am very mouse savvy. I really have to draw with the mouse. It's really more like a pencil than it is to use my finger. And I have been showing them, but I can't get them in there. So this is wonderful. I could probably have them show me how to do something. You know, if I recommend
Sure.
a way, maybe they can practice sort of on the screen for me. Because, you know, we're always doing this with the little paper, you know, show me this, and we put it really close to the camera.
Right, hold it up.
Yeah, and today one of my students just taught me how to use the 3 dots and click on pin, and then I get the student like the full screen, and I could see that drawing like so much better today, and I was delighted. So if I could use this perhaps where they could join me, I think that would be awesome.
But Karen, I will say this: if you're trying to teach art, well, first of all, bless you for trying to teach art in this environment to begin with. But I think it is absolutely worth begging of your school administrators to get you a drawing tablet if you don't already have one. Let me see if I can. I'll have to unplug mine for a moment. Let me see. Can you see this?
Yes.
This is my Wacom drawing tablet. Wacom drawing tablets are amazing because not only do you have something like 2,500 pin settings, you know, pressure settings on it. If you're using any kind of graphics software, this becomes super useful. I actually got it because I do a lot of photo editing, but for something like this, it really becomes useful because then I can just draw with my pen.
And
Which
is that connected?
Want to still remain the hands-on. So if I show them with my mouse, I'm doing a pretty good job. I mean, I've been saving my few drawings that I have, and I can control the thickness of the line and that kind of thing. So I'm really okay with what I have, but I do like this option of the whiteboard that they can join in with me. I think that's great.
I like it because I teach first grade. So this morning we were fixing sentences, you know, finding mistakes. And I like that I can type the sentence and then they can go back and, you know, go put the punctuation, put the capitalization in there. So I can see me using this. This is really nice. I didn't know that Zoom had this feature.
Yeah, same for me. I think it's very interactive, and I think that's wonderful. You know, talk about engaging the kids. If they can do just a couple lines, I think that's, we'll keep them there a little longer.
Yeah, that's nice. And they can get involved there.
Yeah.
So,
I had a question about the view options for the students. So like my view options are at the top. Would that be at the top for them as well?
I think he said so, because at first I didn't know how he got to that, but someone said go to view options. So I think the students will be able to see that.
Yeah, the default is at the top.
Okay, and we were asking, will the students be able to see that view option?
They should be able to.
I guess because we're able to see it and you're
Yeah.
sharing it with us. So,
So if you haven't ever really played with it, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have a question. So if, like, for example, we are doing something with a whiteboard, and if there's one student who would like to erase everything, can the student do that?
probably.
You know what? I don't actually know. Well, let me ask you this: If you see the menu bar with the various commands on it, draw, stamp, spotlight, and all that?
Yes. Yes.
Do you have one called clear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are your options on there?
Yes, there's a clear button. There's a clear, undo, redo, share.
So if you hover your mouse over clear, do any options show up for you?
Okay. Yeah. Click on it.
Yeah, let's try and see what happens.
Oh. Okay, I clicked on it, and the text is still here, and the green with this.
So I think what happened is you only cleared your drawings, or you only cleared yours.
Okay.
Yeah. See, on my end, as the host, I can clear all. I can clear my drawings, and I can clear everybody else's drawings. But I think
Oh.
as the participant, you can only clear your own.
Yeah, because I'm clicking on clear and it's not clearing it.
Okay.
Okay.
So for the sake of time, let me show you something. If you look down on the bottom right, do you see where my cursor is? It's blinking.
Yes.
There's a little square with a plus button on it.
No, we don't see.
We're
I
not
don't see
seeing that.
I
Okay.
don't. Yes.
But you see where my mouse is, where it's
Yes.
okay. So as the host, what I've got is I've got a little square there with a plus on it. I can click on that and I can open up a brand new whiteboard.
Oh, okay.
Which I can draw on. So the nice thing about that, do you see the stuff I'm drawing here? I'm just making squiggles.
Yes.
Okay. So since I hit the plus button, basically what the plus means is add another whiteboard. I can then cycle between them. You see I'm switching back and forth?
Yes.
That way, if I'm doing math or something and I'm, let me open up another one, 3 plus 4. Okay. If I'm doing something here and I'm working a problem and I might want to refer to it later, instead of clearing it or erasing it, I just open up another whiteboard altogether. That way, if for whatever reason, I can go back to it later. So I can have multiple whiteboards. So apparently it's not available. It doesn't show up for you, but as the host or when you launch your own meeting, you're going to have right down there in the corner a little plus button where you can add additional whiteboards. Okay, let me go back to sharing my full screen because I see where we are in the time. Let me take a moment and show you the Jamboard. Here's this one. So you should be seeing the Jamboard again where we put all of our sticky tabs.
Yes.
Okay. I can do the same thing here where I can have multiple boards as well. So if I'm thinking about setting up activities for my students where I want them to be able to contribute something, I can actually create them in advance and then simply scroll through them with my different activities and my different things that I want them to do.
How did you download that picture of the dog?
I went online and I said, show me a picture of a big and little dog. And then I put it into my Google Drive.
Okay, so you took it from Google Drive?
Yes. So on the left-hand side, I've got a pen tool and I can click to choose different kinds of pens and different colors, different sizes. I have an eraser. I've got a pointer, which allows me to move things around, sticky tabs. And then there's a one called Add Image, where I can upload from Google Search, Google Drive, my photos, anything like that. And that's what I did.
Okay.
Yeah, let me cancel that. Then I've got something called just shapes. Okay. I've got one for text. So some of the features are very much like what you have in the whiteboard, but there's a couple advantages here. I think one is I can actually pull down my list of all of my slides, and then I can just simply select the one that I want to display.
And how did you pull that down?
At the top.
Oh, okay. I see the.
Yep. So at the very top, it says right or left. And for here, it says 3 out of 4. And it has a little, if I click on that, it shows me all of my screens, all of my slides.
Okay.
So it makes it very simple. But the other thing that I really like about this is once I've created a Jamboard, it's going to show up in my Google Drive as a document. So let me pop over to my Google Drive. I don't think there's anything here which is particularly private. So Google Drive, purchase orders tech for teachers, which is where we are, and Zoom tips. Okay, let me blow this up. So you should be seeing my folder for this session. And in there, I've got an item called Jam Sample for Zoom, and that's the one that we're looking at right now. So it actually shows up as a file in your Google Drive. Now, how did we get here? Because that was the question. So over here on the upper right, I've got my menu of Google Apps. And it's kind of blown up too much. Drive context, or am I totally not in the right place? More. There we go. I'm sorry. I was totally in the wrong place. So over here on the left-hand side where it says new, and I can choose a new word, document, whatever. I went down to more, and there is Google Jamboard.
Oh, and that's there, huh? I guess I've never noticed it.
Yep. It's like in this case, it's usually tucked away behind the more button.
Okay.
But that's where it is. So you got your docs, your sheets, your slides, forms, and so on, and all your other apps here. And there is Google Jamboard.
When I use it, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying you can add as an extension too.
Okay. And when I use it from here, do I have to have it pulled up in the background?
I would recommend it.
Okay. All right.
Just a part of sort of getting everything ready to go before you start your session.
Okay.
But we could have easily just gone over here to my drive and I could have just grabbed it on the fly.
Okay.
I tend to try to pull up everything in advance. Don't always remember to do that, but either way, I would recommend having it ready though.
And the Jamboard you can use just like the whiteboard.
Right, with some additional features like having the little slideshow presentation across the top, which I think is kind of nice, and the fact that it shows up as a separate document, which means you can share it through your Google account or whatnot. You can share it with your colleagues, or you can share it with your students, or whatever you want to do in that regard. With a whiteboard, you can download it, but then you got to send it to people. But if you're already on a Google system, you can just simply share it.
And one of your slides, you had the Jamboard as it was divided between teacher and students. Did you make that template, or how did you make that?
Yes, it was actually my first slide over here. I just used the Jamboard text tool, line drawing tool.
Okay.
And that's what made it. I will give you one hint though, and this will work for both. If you're trying to draw a straight line on Jamboard, and I've got to go back to my commands over here. Let me get my pen. You can draw a line in any way whatsoever, but if you're, and you can spin it around however you want to put your line in. But if you're on Google Whiteboard, and I believe this is going to work here the same, but let me show you. Let me share the whiteboard again. Drawing lines. If you want to make a straight line, to draw a straight line, which can be difficult to do sometimes, hold down your shift key while you do that, and you see it snaps. And I think it's 30-degree increments. So if you want to draw a straight line, as opposed to trying to do it with your mouse, you can always you want a certain angle, you can always hold down your shift key and it will constrain it to a particular angle. So it's worth playing with. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to say, I see where we are on the clock, and I apologize if I go just a little longer. I did mention I'm not going to talk about how to do all the setup on everything on breakout rooms. I think it's worth playing with. But one thing I do strongly recommend, you can create breakout rooms on the fly, and you can manually put students into them. You just pull up your breakout rooms and you say assign students, and you got the list of students and you can put them in there. You do have a couple of options at that point. One is you tell students, hey, it's time to go to your breakout rooms, and they're going to get something on their screen that says join room, and they have to click on it. But especially for younger kids, I don't think it's worth asking them to click on the room to join it manually. I would use this setting right here, which is just once you've assigned them, they automatically go to it. They're in the room. It's just an extra step and an extra barrier, I think, if we ask them to join them manually. So we set up the rooms. We say start rooms. How many rooms do you want? Okay, and you can assign kids. Then I recommend here on the options panel, you choose automatically move them into the rooms. So when I hit the open all rooms button, boom, everybody automatically goes into the room where they're supposed to be. And that way there's no stragglers. Last thing.
We still have your picture on the screen.
Are you seeing my picture or are you seeing the screen, my screen?
I'm seeing your whiteboard screen with your red lines on it.
Oh my goodness. Well, we are in the wrong place. Let's fix that. You should be seeing something that says breakout rooms, automatic move to and from rooms.
Yes. Yes, now we see it.
Okay, thank you for alerting me. I didn't switch my sharing back over. So I'm just showing you where that is. So when you say create rooms and you assign students to it, there's an option button on the same window where you're creating the rooms. And one of the options is automatically move all assigned participants into the break rooms.
Now, is this found in Zoom, the Zoom?
This is Zoom. Yep.
Okay, and is this found in like the teacher setup or where?
The host will have this option.
Host. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, the host will have this option.
Okay.
Because it's the host that is saying, create rooms and assigning students into them. I do not recommend that you let students choose their own rooms. Matter of fact, I think it's even better to just assign them randomly than to let them do it themselves. But the best option is when you say create rooms, you're going to have a list of all the participants and you can say assign and you can put them into which room you want to, whichever room. Because you'll say, hey, create 3 rooms. Here's all the students. You can assign them one at a time into the rooms. But once you've done that, then I strongly recommend you go to the little options button and choose the one that says automatically move them into the rooms. Now, when I click, we're not doing it here, but when I click open all rooms, suddenly everybody goes directly into that room. They don't have to join it manually. All right, knowing that we're out of time, what else is there to say? Please don't make your screens look like this with a lot of text on them, please, because it's impossible to read. Instead, make them look like this. Right? Think Steve Jobs presenting his iPhone stuff. Couple of words, one big image, and then they do the talking. And not this, obviously, but this. So on your screens, less is going to be much more powerful than more. The end. We made it. We made it. Only 1 minute late. Questions, comments?
I really liked all the features that you showed us on Zoom. I think I'm going to use a lot of them a lot.
Good.
And it's going to help.
Good. Questions? Thank you
Just
for that.
sharing. We navigate this with my husband, who is teaching in another school. So I set a Zoom meeting with him, and then we maneuver.
Good. There's a lot to be said for just getting in and just trying things out. So I've done a lot of work with different folks, and I've had lots of teams working for me, and I tend to use a lot of technological tools. And they said, gosh, but Dave, you do a lot more of this tech stuff than we do. How did you learn it all? And my answer is always the same. Click everything and see what it does. You're not going to break anything probably, right? Click and see what it does and just try stuff out. So Amy, good question. And I will address this right now. I'll hang around for a few minutes if there's more questions. But in the meantime, I am going to do two things. One is this has been recorded. So yes, give me a day or two. I'll package it up nicely with a little title slide and stuff like that. I'll put it on YouTube. I will send you all a link to the video so you can go back and watch it again if you wish to. But like I said, give me a couple of days to do that. It might be Monday. The second thing is, thank you, Deborah. The second thing is I'm going to send you a certificate of participation to say, thank you for being here. You attended. So you're going to get that. And the third thing is I'm going to send you in the same email a link to an evaluation form. Now, I went ahead and posted it in the chat box now. If you want to just go ahead and do it now, that'd be great and much appreciated. Or I will be sending it to you in your email when I send you a certificate. So that is coming up. Like I said, give me a couple of days. It might be Monday, but at some point you're going to get a video link, an evaluation link, and a certificate. And thank you all for being here. I hope it was useful to you. Hope you found it engaging, entertaining. I had a lot of fun, and I appreciate all of your comments and feedback and just a willingness to jump in and participate. So thank you all very much for this.